Good morning, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This is Rich again, back for your first video blog of the day for Saturday, June 13th, 2015, around 5:43 in the morning in Billerica, Massachusetts. Cloudy out right now, but it's supposed to be better on later on in the day because this is a cold front to get the humidity down. We had some showers last night and thunderstorms. Some news to report. Boston Red Sox again lost, this time to the Toronto Blue Jays by a score of 13-10. The Red Sox were up big time, but they blew a big lead, and the Jays are on a big hot streak. And in the Women's World Cup, the USA's women's soccer team tied with Sweden 0-0. And actor John Stamos, known for his role as Uncle Jesse in Full House, got arrested last night for DUI. That's about it on the news. My first video subject of the day is my review of the King of the Ring pay-per-views. For the next 10 days I'm going to be doing King of the Ring pay-per-view from the WWE. The King of the Ring was a pay-per-view that the WWE put out between 1993 and 2002. The background of the King of the Ring, actually it started as like kind of a tournament in New England. The first two of them were at Foxborough Stadium, the old Foxborough Stadium, in 1985 and 1986, which drew a decent house and stuff. And then they went to the Providence Civic Center in Providence, Rhode Island, which is now the Dunkin' Donuts Center, and they had them for about a few years into 1991. And it was a glorified house show and stuff like that. It wasn't televised, but it was pretty good. And the WWE needed a new pay-per-view name because they only did about 4 pay-per-views a year during the early 1990s and stuff, late 80s and early 1990s. And the first ever WWE King of the Ring pay-per-view happened on June 13th, 1993 at the Nutting Center in Dayton, Ohio. And the announced team for this pay-per-view was play-by-play good old Jim Ross, JR, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Bobby the Brain Heenan. And it was an 8-man tournament to decide the first ever WWE King of the Ring on pay-per-view. Plus, the main event was Hulk Hogan defending the WWE title against the 568-pound Yokozuna. Plus, there were a couple of other matches. And here's the card. There was a dark match. This match was not shown on pay-per-view. It was just shown to the crowd at Dayton, Ohio. It was Papa Shango defending the USWA World title against the Rocket Owen Hart. Back then, the WWE and USWA had a talent relations exchange, and there was a lot of wrestlers going from WWE to USWA and vice versa. All the USWA wrestlers who were in the WWE were heels, and all of the like WWE wrestlers who were faces in WWE were heels in USWA. And Papa Shango beat Owen Hart to retain the USWA title. Not too much information about that match because it wasn't televised. And here are the King of the Ring matches that happened on the pay-per-view. And the first round, the quarterfinals tournament, the number 1 seed was Bret the Hitman Hart. He faced off against Razor Ramon. And in the first round match of the King of the Ring pay-per-view, this was a back and forth match and stuff. Bret Hart and Razor Ramon was exchanging moves and stuff, and it was pretty action-paced. The ending of this match had like Razor Ramon tried to do a suplex on Bret the Hitman Hart, but Bret the Hitman Hart had momentum and pinned Razor Ramon for 1, 2, 3, and Bret the Hitman Hart moved on to the semifinals of the King of the Ring. The next King of the Ring match in the quarterfinals was Mr. Perfect facing off against Mr. Hughes with Harvey Whippleman as its manager. Mr. Hughes had possession of the urn from The Undertaker because a couple of days earlier on television on WWE Superstars, Mr. Hughes and Giant Gonzalez attacked The Undertaker and Paul Bearer, and they stole the urn. And this was, a decent match between Mr. Hughes and Mr. Perfect. Ending the match had Mr. Hughes use the urn on Mr. Perfect, getting him the automatic disqualification. So Mr. Perfect advances to the semifinals to face Bret the Hitman Hart. The next King of the Ring match was Hacksaw Jim Duggan facing off against Bam Bam Bigelow, which, this was a good 6-7 minute match. The ending had Hacksaw Jim Duggan going for his 3-point stance, but Bam Bam moved out of the way, and Duggan hit the turnbuckle and knocks down, and then Bam Bam goes up to the top rope and does his diving headbutt for the 1, 2, 3. Bam Bam Bigelow advances to the second round of the King of the Ring tournament, the semifinals, and the last King of the Ring first round match was the Native American Tatanka facing off against Lex Luger, and Lex Luger had to have his forearm a pad for it because it was surgically repaired. He had something like a metal plate in there because he suffered a motorcycle accident a year prior. And this was a back and forth match and stuff between Tatanka and Lex Luger. It ended up in a 15-minute time limit draw. Both wrestlers, Tatanka and Lex Luger, were undefeated on television at that point. This was kind of a little BS and stuff. I think they wanted to protect both wrestlers from not losing their first match on a tournament pay-per-view with King of the Ring, kept them strong and stuff like that. But I think they should have had somebody advance, and if it was, I would have had Tatanka's undefeated streak end right here and have Lex Luger advance to the second round of King of the Ring and stuff, the semifinals of King of the Ring. But then you would have had heel Bam Bam against heel Luger and stuff. But it could have been worked out on something. And the semifinals of the King of the Ring pay-per-view match, there was only one because Bam Bam got a bye into the finals. The second, the semifinal King of the Ring pay-per-view match happened after the last first round match. It was Mr. Perfect against Bret the Hitman Hart, and this was a classic 18-minute match. Mr. Perfect was subletting playing the heel, and Bret the Hitman Hart was the face, and this was a back and forth match. The ending had Bret pin Mr. Perfect, and then both wrestlers shake hands and stuff like that. I think this was a very classic Mr. Perfect versus Bret Hart match. I think this was kind of a little bit better what they had at SummerSlam 1991 and stuff. If Mr. Perfect didn't have a serious back injury back in 1991, I bet Perfect and Bret would have had a long-running feud, in my opinion. And then the next match was for the WWE World Title. It was Hulk Hogan, the reigning WWE Champion at that time, with his manager, the Mouth of South Jimmy had, defending the WWE title against a massive 568-pound Yokozuna with Mr. Fuji in his corner. And they were hyping up this match. The announcer was saying, could Hogan slam the 568-pound Yokozuna and stuff like that? Can Hogan body slam it? This match was, okay. Hogan tried to body slam Yokozuna, but he couldn't a couple of times. And, Yokozuna beats down Hogan and stuff. But Hogan makes his usual comeback and stuff. And people were thinking this would be another routine title defense by Hulk Hogan, and they have a photographer who was bearded and stuff like that. And when was Hogan going through the camera exploded and there was a fireball and stuff, and Jimmy Hart was chasing that cameraman around, and then Yokozuna delivers the leg drop onto Hogan. 1, 2, 3, and Yokozuna becomes the new WWE Champion, and then Yokozuna drags Hogan near the ropes and delivers the Banzai drop. Banzai! Hogan's out, and Bobby the Brain Heenan says Hulkamania Hulkamania said this was the last television match that Hulk Hogan would wrestle in the WWE for 9 years, and Yokozuna starts his reign as WWE Champion for the second time. This is not the one that he only won it for about 30 seconds and stuff. This was a long running reign over 9 months. Probably one of the most successful heel WWE champions of all time, Yokozuna. Then they have the 8-man tag team match between Money Incorporated, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and ILS, who were the reigning WWE Tag Team Champions, and the Head Shrinkers, Fatu and Samu, with Arthur, the Wild Samoan, facing off against the Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart, and the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott Steiner. This was only a 6.5-minute match. It was kind of a throwaway match. It was, your basic 8-man tag team brawl and stuff. The ending of the match had the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, put Billy Gunn in $1 Million Dream and let it go, and he was gloating for it, saying as punishment, but Billy delivered a small package to Ted DiBiase for 1, 2, 3 and stuff. And this was an awful 8-man tag team match. Rick Steiner did not legally get tagged in this match and stuff, which probably pissed him off and stuff. And then afterwards, the Head Shrinkers and Money Inc. were attacking the Billy Gunn, but then they have Bart Gunn and the Steiners run the heels off, and just an awful match in my opinion. This had no business on the pay-per-view and stuff like that, but they needed to fill time. No, this should have been thrown off. This should have not been on the pay-per-view, and they should have had they should have had Luger advance in the King of the Ring tournament and have both heel versus heel in the semi-final of the King of the Ring, then Bam Bam getting a bye and stuff. Well, that's whatever. And then the next match was for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. It was Shawn Michaels, the reigning WWE IC champion, with his bodyguard, Big Daddy Cool Diesel, facing off against the challenger of the original Hawaiian Punch, Crush. And this was a great match. Crush did a lot of power moves on Shawn Michaels, the big military press over his head, and a lot of some tilt-the-world suplexes and stuff like that. But Shawn got the advantage and stuff like that. And Crush was on the verge of putting Shawn Michaels in that cranium head vice, was finishing maneuver. But then he was distracted by the two Doinks, because Doink and Crush were having a big feud at this time. And the two Doinks were played by Matt Bourne and Steve Curran, and then that Doinks distract him, and then Shawn Michaels gives Crush the super kick, that sweet chin music for the 1, 2, 3. Shawn Michaels retains the WWE IC Championship. This was a decent match and stuff, but it's not a classic Intercontinental title match. And then the final of the King of the Ring match was Bret the Hitman Hart wrestling for the third time, facing off against the Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow. The winner of this match would become the King of the Ring, and this was a Matt classic, in my opinion, maybe one of the top 10 Bret Hart matches of all time. Back and forth and stuff. The technical skill of Bret the Hitman Hart and the power of Bam Bam Bigelow and stuff. You'll be surprised that Bam Bam Bigelow was a great wrestler for a big man and stuff like that. He should have gotten a bigger push in the WWE and stuff like that. It's too bad, because Bam Bam just had that talent. He could have been maybe a great Intercontinental Champion, or maybe a brief reign of the world title, but with politics have had to do stuff with that. Actually, Bam Bam won the match when Luna Vachon interfered, hit Bret the Hitman Hart with the chair, and then Bam Bam grabs him and pins him 1, 2, 3, and Bam Bam supposedly beats King of the Ring. That would have been, kind of, I don't know if it would have served the purpose, because for what happened after the match and stuff like that, unless if they wanted to turn Bam Bam face and stuff, but that would have been pointless. And then they had the second referee come down, tell the first referee what happened, and they had to restart the match. And then it was back and forth. Brett eventually wins with a victory roll on Bam Bam Bigelow, and then Bret the Hitman Hart's the first ever WWE King of the Ring and stuff like that, and then we're cheering, and then they have the interview segment with Mean Gene Okerlund, and they put the crown on him, and fans were cheering. But then Jerry the King Lawler comes in, who was an announcer for the WWE, the heel commentator for Superstars, and wrestled from time to time on television, saying that he's the real king of the WWE and stuff like that. And then he attacks Bret the Hitman Hart, whips the crown and the robe and stuff. And this starts a big feud and stuff between Jerry the King Lawler and Bret the Hitman Hart, which won feud of the year in 1993 for PWI, and it also involved them in USWA as well. But Jerry the King Lawler was a face in USWA, that's his home territory, and Bret played the heel and stuff, and also led to Vince McMahon being the heel in USWA. But I covered that earlier in an earlier blog months ago, so you could check it out. What did I think of this WWE King of the Ring pay-per-view, the first one to 1993? Yeah, it was very decent and stuff like that. They could have did a little more on this pay-per-view. I give it maybe 6 out of 10 stars and stuff, a little bit above average, because I think because of Bret the Hitman Hart winning 3 matches and stuff, plus his great match with Mr. Perfect and his great match with Bam Bam Bigelow and stuff. And the Intercontinental title match was pretty good with Shawn Michaels and Crush, even though if it wasn't nothing to write home about. And Yokozuna beating Hulk Hogan for the WWE title was good. And but the rest of the card with some of the matches for the 8-man tag was a throwaway and stuff. Like I said, they should have had like the second semifinal match between Bam Bam Bigelow and Lex Luger and stuff, heel versus heel. I wonder who would have been played that, like the face in that match. Probably Bam Bam and stuff. So I don't know. And the announcing was, decent, and Jim Ross says he carried the broadcast with Macho Man and the Brain, and I agree with that and stuff, because Jim Ross was a great announcer, and this was one of his greater performances on the King of the Ring 1993 pay-per-view. And when he said a shoot interview on television in 1996, he says, "You go listen to that broadcast. I carried the broadcast from ringside," and he really did. And that's about it on this video blog. Tomorrow will be the review of the 1994 King of the Ring from Baltimore, Maryland. And later on today, 2 more video blogs. One will be about the MBTA bus route 69 from Leechmere Station in Cambridge for the Green Line to Harvard Square. And the third and final video blog of the night will be about former WWE Diva Ivory. Have a good day, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And in the words of Sean Lucha, get out. Bye now.